The domed lecture hall of the Galactic Probability Institute hummed with the quiet chatter of 24 species. Holographic equations floated lazily between the tiered seating levels, their alien symbols shifting colors as different students interacted with them. Dr. Elias Carter adjusted his simple datapad on the podium, the device looking painfully primitive next to the neural interfaces and quantum calculation orbs his students used. "Today we examine the statistical anomalies of primitive species," announced Professor Vrix, his Zelthian carapace shimmering with amusement patterns. 6 of his upper limbs manipulated holograms while the lower 2 tapped rhythmically against his thorax. Particularly the so-called human luck phenomenon in military engagements. A ripple of clicking mandibles and bioluminescent flashes passed through the class. Carter kept his expression neutral, though his grip tightened on the datapad. 3 months teaching here, and they still introduced his species like some curiosity in a zoo. Vrix expanded a star map showing hundreds of battle icons. Our latest meta-analysis of Sci-Fi space engagements shows human forces achieving statistically improbable victories in Sci-Fi of cases. A new hologram appeared, a complex probability cloud. When accounting for all variables, these results fall within expected random distribution. Conclusion. His eye stalk swiveled toward a reptilian student. Meaningless noise. The student hissed. Forked tongue flicking, primitive pattern, seeking behavior, correct. Vrix's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile. The human luck myth stems from their limited cognitive capacity to, that is incorrect. The hall fell silent. Carter hadn't meant to speak aloud, but the words came anyway. Every alien eye and sensor organ turned toward the lone human. Vrix's bioluminescence flickered purple. Surprise, Dr. Carter, you have objections. Carter stepped away from the podium, his shoes clicking against the crystal floor. Your analysis assumes human decision. Making follows standard galactic military doctrine. It doesn't. He gestured at the hologram. You're missing the underlying algorithm. A burst of chittering laughter came from a spider, like Zenthian student. Algorithm. Humans don't use battle algorithms, they just do things. More laughter. Carter ignored them, typing on his datapad. The Institute's main display flickered, then showed raw footage from the Battle of Cerulean Gap, a famous human victory against the Vorak. Watch the cruiser maneuvers, Carter said. Every turn, every shot follows a pattern. The class watched as the human ships weaved through the Vorak formation, their movements appearing chaotic at first glance. But as Carter highlighted key moments, subtle rhythms emerged, micro-adjustments timed to enemy weapon cycles, evasion vectors that anticipated missile spreads. Vrix's eye stalks twitched. Coincidence? No organic mind could calculate that in real time. Not consciously, no. Carter tapped his temple. But after 10,000 years of warfare, certain patterns get hardwired. What you call luck is just generations of battlefield statistics compressed into instinct. A hulking Brintar student snorted through its nasal vents. So humans fight well because they're violent? This proves nothing. Carter smiled. Not just violent, persistent. He brought up another display, a comparison between standard galactic tactical models and human improvisations. Your simulations assume perfect information. Humans operate on incomplete data and still outperform. Vrix's carapace darkened. This is anecdotal at best. Where is your mathematical proof? That is what I've been working on. Carter pulled up a complex equation. I call it the Carter predictive variance model. It accounts for... The door hissed open. Chancellor Orlan floated in on his anti-grav disc, his translucent Superior skin pulsing with irritation. Professor Vrix, why is my institute discussing human superstitions? Vrix bowed deeply, merely demonstrating statistical principles, Chancellor. Holland's bulbous eyes fixed on Carter. Ah, the human. His voice dripped with condescension. Still trying to quantify your species' irrational behavior. Carter met his gaze. Still refusing to see the pattern, Chancellor? The hall gasped. No one spoke to Orlan that way. The Chancellor's skin flashed warning red. Enough of this nonsense? The Federation's top mathematicians have studied this human luck for decades. If there was substance to it, we'd have an alarm blared. The holograms dissolved into emergency red as a comms officer rushed in. Chancellor, Vorak forces have crossed the demilitarized zone. They're attacking the Zinthara trade lanes. Orlan's disc wobbled. Impossible. Our probability models gave a fey chance of… Sir, the officer interrupted. The human merchant fleet in the area is engaging. Early reports say they're winning. Every alien head turned toward Carter. He didn't smile, didn't gloat, just picked up his datapad and said, "Let me show you how they're doing it." The simulation chamber hummed with energy, its curved walls alive with swirling tactical displays. Alien commanders lounged in their fluid-filled control pods, tentacles dancing across holographic interfaces with effortless grace. Dr. Elias Carter stood apart at a simple console, his human fingers tapping keys in a rhythm that drew amused glances from the Zelthian observers. Professor Vrix's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with smug satisfaction as he addressed the gathered officers. "Let us demonstrate why human luck cannot be quantified," he announced, mandibles clicking. "The Federation's finest battle computers will simulate a standard engagement. Observe how random chance favors the inferior species." A Vorak admiral, Kess, rose from her pod, armored plates shifting with predatory amusement. "I've crushed human fleets before," she rumbled. "Their so-called luck evaporates when faced with real firepower." Carter didn't look up from his datapad. "Then you won't mind a little demonstration." The chamber darkened as the simulation activated. A starfield bloomed above them, dotted with glowing markers representing ships. On one side, a sleek Vorak battle group. On the other, a handful of outdated human cruisers. Vrix manipulated the controls with 3 limbs simultaneously. Standard parameters. Human vessels have a 12% survival rate in this scenario based on historical data. Carter finally looked up. Historical data is flawed. Kess snorted. "Your arrogance is entertaining, soft skin." "Run the simulation," Carter said. "But use real battle logs, not theoretical models." A ripple of unease passed through the alien observers. Vrix's glow flickered. "That data is classified and irrelevant if you're right." Carter met the Zelthian's primary eyes. "Unless you're afraid of what the numbers will show." The chamber buzzed with whispered exchanges. A Zephyrian bureaucrat near the back hissed through translucent flesh. "This is highly irregular." Kess slammed a clawed fist into her pod. "Let him try. I want to see his face when his pitiful ships explode." Vrix hesitated. "Then input new commands." The starfield shimmered, replaced by actual battle records. The engagement at Tau Ceti flashed into existence, human freighters against Vorak raiders. "Begin," Vrix said. The simulation played at double speed. Human ships dodged, weaved, and struck with impossible precision. A freighter's cargo module detonated at the exact moment to cripple a Vorak destroyer. Another vessel slid between 2 torpedo volleys with centimeters to spare. Kess's armored plating clamped tight. Impossible. Vrix's limbs twitched as he checked the data. Statistical anomalies, nothing more. Carter tapped his console. The simulation reset, this time showing the Battle of Ceres. Human mining drones redirected an asteroid into a Zelthian carrier's path. "Again," Carter said. The third simulation showed a single human fighter evading 37 consecutive shots before disabling a Vorak dreadnought's engines. The chamber fell silent. Kess's claws scraped against her pod. Tricks. These are edited records. Carter pulled up the verification codes. Federation time, stamped, certified by your own archivists. Vrix's bioluminescence dimmed. Even if these events occurred, they're outliers. The law of averages doesn't apply, Carter interrupted. He threw a new dataset onto the main display. Thousands of battles, each with human ships surviving against impossible odds. You call it luck. I call it a pattern. Admiral Kess rose, her armored form casting a shadow over Carter. Prove it in real space. Carter didn't flinch gladly. Vrix's limbs trembled. You can't be serious. We can't authorize live exercises based on this human delusion. Kess bared her fangs. I'll authorize it. My fleet could use target practice. Carter tapped his earpiece. Captain Blake, you getting this? A gruff voice crackled through the chamber speakers. Loud and clear, Doc Defiance is prepped and waiting. Kess's laugh was a low growl. One human cruiser against my battle group. This should be brief. Carter pocketed his datapad. Meet us at the edge of Vorak space in 6 hours. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Admiral, bring your best tacticians, you'll need them. As the chamber doors hissed shut behind him, the aliens erupted into furious debate. Vrix's glow had turned a sickly yellow. Kess was already barking orders into her comm. None of them noticed the equation Carter had left flashing on the main display. Victory, Fay, the asteroid outpost, hummed with the quiet desperation of human ingenuity. Flickering screens cast jagged shadows across the bunker's walls, their glow illuminating stacks of coffee-stained notes and half-disassembled alien tech. Dr. Elias Carter wiped sweat from his forehead, his fingers flying across a keyboard that looked archaic next to the sleek neural interfaces of the Federation. Lieutenant Mara Vasquez tossed another data crystal onto the growing pile between them. Another Vorak engagement log, she said, her voice hoarse from 12 hours without sleep. 7th Fleet's last stand at Cygnus Reach. They called it a miracle when the US and Phoenix slipped their kill box. Carter didn't look up. His eyes darted across the screen, absorbing numbers faster than any Zelthian bioprocessor could manage. Miracle, my ass, he muttered. Look at the vector patterns. Every human ship that got lucky made the exact same micro adjustments at the exact same moment. That's not chance. That's protocol. Vasquez leaned over his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. You're saying we've been running on autopilot this whole time? Worse. Carter tapped a key, and the screen split into a dozen battle recordings. Watch the Phoenix here. See how she rolls starboard just before the Vorak lances fire. Now look at the Defiant at Tau Ceti. Same roll, same timing, and the Atlantia at Proxima. Vasquez finished, her eyes widening. Holy hell, it's the OODA loop. Carter grinned for the first time in days. Bingo, observe, orient, decide, act, but compressed into nanoseconds. Our pilots aren't lucky. They're subconsciously running probability algorithms faster than the aliens can compute them consciously. A klaxon blared as the outpost's ancient life support stuttered. Vasquez kicked the wall, and the noise died with a pathetic whine. So what's the math? She demanded. If we can quantify this, we can teach it, Carter said. He yanked a cable from the wall, splicing it directly into his datapad. The screen lit up with equations that would give a Zelthian mathematician seizures. Human neural architecture processes threat patterns differently. We don't calculate, we feel the optimal move. Centuries of war baked it into our DNA, Vasquez whistled. And the Federation thinks we're just rolling cosmic dice. Exactly. Carter's fingers blurred across the keys. But watch this. He pulled up a Vorak attack pattern, the data streaming in jagged red lines. Their ships always telegraph their strikes by seconds, too fast for conscious reaction, but not for human instinct. A new window popped up, showing the USN Defiance's last engagement. Vasquez gasped as the ship's trajectory overlapped perfectly with Carter's predictive model. Every dodge, every shot, you mapped it. Not me. Carter's smile turned fierce. Every human captain in history did. We just never realized we were speaking the same mathematical language. The comm crackled to life. Carter, this is Blake on the Defiance. The captain's voice was tight with static. Vorak scouts just jumped into the sector. We've got maybe an hour before. Vasquez grabbed the mic. Before what, sir? A pause, then Blake's grim chuckle. Before they test your human luck theory the hard way. Carter met Vasquez's eyes. The unspoken truth hung between them. They'd just found the key to defeating the Vorak, and the Federation had buried it under centuries of arrogance. Send me everything, Blake said. Every equation, every pattern. If we're going down, we're taking their random chance myth with us. Vasquez was already compiling the data. Carter stared at the screen, watching as his algorithm highlighted the Defiance's probable escape vectors in pulsing gold. The numbers didn't lie. Humanity had never been lucky. They'd just been better. The council chamber hummed with energy, its floating seats arranged in concentric rings that pulsed with the shifting opinions of the Federation's elite. Dr. Elias Carter stood at the central podium, his simple human frame dwarfed by the towering holographic displays, projecting his findings. The data streams flickered, equations, battle records, probability matrices, all converging on one undeniable conclusion. You're saying human luck is predictable? Chancellor Orland's translucent skin rippled with skepticism, his Zephyrian vocal sac inflating with each word. The chamber's acoustics made his voice echo like a judge pronouncing sentence. Not predictable, Carter corrected, tapping his datapad. The screen flared as new connections formed between seemingly random human victories. Systematic. What you've dismissed as statistical noise is actually a pattern recognition algorithm hardwired into human cognition. We don't get lucky, we calculate. A murmur spread through the assembled delegates. Professor Vrix rose from his seat, his bioluminescent markings flashing derisive violet. This is absurd. You're suggesting humans possess some innate supercomputing ability. No, Carter said. Just centuries of surviving against worse odds. He swiped a hand through the hologram, pulling up the Battle of Cerulean Reach, a skirmish where 3 human corvettes had outmaneuvered a Zelthian dreadnought. Watch the firing patterns. Every human evasion aligns with optimal probability paths. The data unfolded like a time-lapse of inevitability. Missiles dodged by margins thinner than a human hair, weapons firing into empty space, only for enemy ships to slide into the trajectories seconds later. Orland's tendrils stiffened. Coincidence. 723 coincidences, Carter counted. That is how many documented cases I've analyzed. The odds of this being random are irrelevant, Vrix interrupted. His mandibles clacked in the Zelthian equivalent of a scoff. Even if true, this human intuition is unstable, unregulated. The Federation cannot base defense strategies on instinct. Carter's grip tightened on the datapad. It is not instinct, it is math. A new voice cut through the debate. Admiral Kess, her Vorak carapace gleaming under the chamber lights. Then prove it. She leaned forward, her compound eyes reflecting the holograms. Run your equations against live data. The Vorak Third Fleet is conducting war games near the Zinthara Belt. Let us see if human calculation can predict real maneuvers. Silence fell. Carter exhaled. Gladly, the chamber's central display split one side showing the Vorak fleet's positions, the other Carter's predictive model for 10 tense minutes. Equations scrolled as Carter input variables. Then, now, he said, the Vorak ships pivoted in unison, executing a complex flanking maneuver. Carter's model had predicted their formation 12 seconds before it happened. Orland's skin paled to near. Transparency, Vrix stood abruptly. This proves nothing. The simulation could be rigged. Humans are notorious for the emergency alert blared before he could finish. Lights flashed crimson as the chamber's AI announced, "Priority transmission from Vorak High Command. Unidentified hostile contact at the Zinthara Belt. Third Fleet engaging." Every eye turned to the live feed. The Vorak ships were wheeling wildly, their formation collapsing as unseen projectiles lanced through their ranks. Admiral Kess's carapace plates flared in alarm. "Those are our signatures. Who is attacking us with?" Carter was already moving, his fingers flying over the datapad. The equations resolved into a single, horrifying certainty. "It is the Defiance," he said. The feed zoomed in. There, dwarfed by the Vorak Armada, was the USN Defiance, a battered human cruiser, its hull patched with scrap metal. It shouldn't have survived the first volley yet. It danced between plasma bursts, its railguns firing at intervals that made no tactical sense until Vorak ships drifted into the shots. Captain Blake's voice crackled over the comm. "Sorry for the interruption, folks. Just thought we'd give a live demonstration." His grin was audible. "Dr. Carter, tell the nice aliens what happens next." Carter didn't need to check the numbers. "The Defiance will break formation in 3, 2, 1. On screen, the human ship spun sideways, avoiding a planet, crack a missile by Fei seconds. The projectile streaked past and detonated a Vorak carrier instead. The chamber erupted. Orlan's tendrils lashed. "This is an outrage. You humans orchestrated this." "No," Carter said quietly. "We just knew it would happen." He tapped his datapad and the display changed, showing Blake's attack path overlaid with Carter's original prediction. The lines matched perfectly. Vrix's bioluminescence flickered out. For the first time, the Zelthian had no rebuttal. Admiral Kess rose, her carapace plates locked in a Vorak salute. "The Third Fleet stands down," she announced. Then, grudgingly, "The human vessel's predictive capabilities are acknowledged." Silence. The chamber's AI chose that moment to update the tactical display. New text scrolled across the Vorak fleet's status. Casualties, Fey-human restraint protocols engaged, Orlan deflated like a punctured bladder. "You let them survive." Blake's laughter echoed through the comm. "Course we did. This was just a demo." A pause. "Unless you'd prefer we recalculate." The datapad in Carter's hands beeped once. The screen now showed a single equation, pulsing red human victory probability, Fey not a boast, a fact. The chamber's silence was absolute. The USN Defiance shuddered as another Vorak plasma volley streaked past its starboard side. Warning klaxons blared through the cramped bridge. Captain Ryan Blake gripped his command chair, his knuckles white. The tactical display showed 12 Vorak warships closing in, their predatory hulls gleaming in the starlight. "Status report," Blake barked. "Shields at Fey percent," Lieutenant Cho called out, her voice tight. "Engine 2 is venting plasma. We can't take another direct hit." Blake's eyes flicked to the comms officer. "Carter, you still with us?" Dr. Elias Carter's voice crackled through the speakers, calm despite the chaos. "I'm here, Captain, uploading new coordinates now." A series of numbers flashed across Blake's screen. Coordinates, vectors, probabilities. The kind of data that made most species' heads spin. But Blake had served with Carter long enough to trust the math. "Helm, hard to port, Fey degrees down angle," Blake ordered. "Time it exactly." The helmsman, Ensign Rook, didn't question it. His hands flew over the controls. The Defiance lurched sideways, just as a Vorak torpedo screamed past, missing by less than half a kilometer. On the view screen, the Vorak flagship loomed larger, its organic armor pulsing with energy. "They're locking on again?" Cho shouted. Blake didn't flinch. "Carter." "Fire solution ready," Carter replied. Target their ventral plasma conduit. Hit it in Fey. Fire. The Defiance's railguns roared. A single tungsten round streaked across the void, slamming directly into the Vorak ship's weak point. The explosion rippled through the flagship's hull, sending debris spinning into the black. Silence fell on the bridge. Did we just? Rook began. Blake grinned. We did. But the battle wasn't over. The remaining Vorak ships regrouped, their formations tightening. Their commander's voice snarled over the comms, distorted by static. Human vessel, you are outnumbered. Surrender or be destroyed. Blake leaned forward. Carter, what is our play? A pause. Then Carter's voice, quieter now. They're herding us toward the nebula. It is a trap. Blake exhaled. Of course it is. Cho looked up, her face pale. Nebula's full of ionic interference. Our sensors will be blind in there. Exactly what they want, Blake muttered. He tapped his console, pulling up Carter's latest data stream. The numbers danced, probabilities, angles, escape vectors. Then he saw it. Carter, you madman, Blake breathed. A single path cut through the chaos. A path no sane species would take. Helm, Blake said, his voice steady. Set course for the nebula. Full thrust. Rook's hands froze. Sir, do it. The Defiance banked sharply, diving straight toward the swirling gas clouds. Behind them, the Vorak fleet hesitated, then followed. Inside the nebula, visibility dropped to 0. The Defiance's sensors fizzed with static. Now what? Cho whispered. Blake watched the clock. Now we wait. 3 seconds passed. Then Carter's voice cut through the noise. Hard starboard. Now. Rook yanked the controls. The Defiance veered right, just as a Vorak cruiser barreled past, its weapons firing wildly into empty space. Another, Carter said. The ship twisted again. Another Vorak vessel overshot, its shots going wide. One by one, the Defiance dodged, weaved, and struck. Each move calculated down to the millisecond. On the bridge of the Vorak flagship, High Admiral Zelth watched in growing fury. His tactical officers scrambled, their neural interfaces flashing with errors. How are they doing this? Zelth hissed. No one answered. Back on the Defiance, Blake exhaled as another near. Misrocked the ship. Carter, how many more of these do we have? 2, Carter replied. Then we're clear. The ship shuddered again. A console exploded, showering the bridge in sparks. Shields failing, Cho yelled. Blake clenched his jaw. Do it. The Defiance spun, its engines flaring. For a heartbeat, it hung motionless, then shot forward like a bullet, slipping between 2 Vorak destroyers. The Vorak ships collided in a fireball. Silence. Then Rook let out a shaky laugh. We're alive? Blake leaned back, his heart pounding. Carter. A pause. Then, clear, Carter said. Vorak fleet is in disarray. We have an opening. Blake grinned. Then let's not waste it, Helm. Get us out of here. As the Defiance streaked towards safety, the Vorak Admiral's voice crackled over the comm one last time. Not with threats, but with something far worse, confusion. Human vessel. How? Blake flicked off the comm. He didn't answer. Some lessons were better learned the hard way. The Vorak flagship's bridge was a nightmare of organic technology, its walls pulsing with veins of bioluminescent fluid. High Admiral Zelth's armored plates rattled as he slammed a clawed fist into the command console. Impossible, he snarled, his voice a guttural growl. No species evades our targeting systems, not like this. On the main view screen, the USN Defiance twisted through space like a leaf in a hurricane, yet every move was precise, calculated. Plasma bolts meant to obliterate the human cruiser missed by meters. Not luck, not chance. "Bring me the human scientist," Zelth ordered. His secondary arms twitched toward the neural interface ports along his temples. "I want to see his face when we tear his ship apart." A comm officer, a lesser Vorak with half-formed plating, hesitated. "Admiral, the human vessel is hailing us." Zelth's mandibles spread in a predatory grin. "Put him through." The screen flickered. Dr. Elias Carter's face appeared, calm despite the battle raging around him. Behind him, the Defiance's bridge was a storm of activity. Human crew shouting coordinates, screens flashing with equations. "You're wondering how we're doing this," Carter said. No greeting, no fear. Zelth's plates flared. "You've hacked our systems. A coward's trick." Carter shook his head. "No tricks, just math." He tapped a command into his datapad. A stream of numbers flooded the Vorak screens. Coordinates, trajectories, probabilities. "Your attack patterns are predictable. Not to your species, not to the Federation, but to us. We've seen this before." A junior Vorak tactician hissed. "He's reading our maneuvers before we execute them." Zelth rounded on the officer. Silence. But the damage was done. The bridge crew shifted uneasily, their confidence cracking. Carter continued, his voice steady. "You call it luck when our ships survive against the odds. When we strike your weak points without seeming to aim. But it's not luck, it's pattern recognition." He leaned closer to the screen. "Humanity has spent centuries at war, with ourselves, with chaos, with the universe. We've learned to see the equations in the chaos, to feel the statistics." On the view screen, the Defiance executed a maneuver that defied physics, rolling beneath a Vorak destroyer's ventral cannons. Its own guns firing at the exact millisecond, the enemy's shields cycled. The destroyer erupted in flames. Zelth's claws dug into the console. "You're lying. No species calculates that fast." Carter smirked. "We don't calculate. Not consciously, our brains optimize subconsciously, instinctively." He gestured to the battle beyond. "What you're seeing isn't a fluke. It's the result of 10,000 years of human desperation, of needing to win against impossible odds." A tactical officer suddenly screamed. "Admiral, the human cruiser, it's targeting our primary reactor conduit." Zelth whirled. "Impossible. That location is classified." Carter's smile didn't waver. "Like I said, pattern recognition." The Defiance's guns fired, a single precise shot. The Vorak flagship shuddered as alarms wailed. Lights flickered, the deck tilted. Zelth roared. "Evasive maneuvers. All power to shields." Carter watched, unimpressed. "Too late, you've already lost." The Vorak admiral lunged toward the screen. "You arrogant softkin, well obliterate your pathetic species." Carter's expression hardened. "You had your chance. Now you're just another variable in our equation." The transmission cut on the bridge of the Defiance. Captain Blake grinned as Carter stepped back from the comms. "They bought it." Carter nodded. "Hook, line, and sinker." Blake turned to his crew. "All right, folks, let's show them what happens when humans stop being lucky and start being predictable." The Defiance surged forward, its engines flaring. Around it, the remaining Vorak ships hesitated, their formations breaking, their commanders uncertain. For the first time in galactic history, the predators had become the prey. And the humans, they weren't lucky. They were inevitable. The lecture hall of the Galactic Probability Institute had never been so quiet. Every floating seat was occupied Zelthian mathematicians, in their shimmering logic robes, Vorak officers still smelling of ionized armor, even Chancellor Orlan's translucent Superior entourage, hovering near the ceiling. The only sound was the faint hum of the Institute's climate systems, and the occasional nervous click of mandibles. Dr. Elias Carter stood at the podium, the same one Professor Vrix had mocked him from days before. His simple datapad looked even more out of place now, surrounded by the neural interfaces and holographic displays of the galaxy's brightest minds. He didn't need them. The equations were in his head. Vrix's bioluminescent patterns flickered uncertainly as Carter tapped the board. A single line of numbers appeared, glowing white against the dark surface. Human victory probability. Faye. The silence broke into a storm of chittering, hissing, and telepathic pulses. A Zelthian in the front row stood, her tendrils writhing. This is arrogance. No species achieves perfect prediction. Carter didn't smile. He didn't need to. The battle records from the Defiance played on the central display, the human cruiser weaving through Vorak kill zones. Every shot missing by meters, every return strike hitting weak points the Vorak hadn't even known they had. You called it luck, Carter said. His voice was calm, but it carried, we call it math. Admiral Zelth's armored form shifted in the back. The Vorak commander had come personally after the humiliation at the edge of their space. His voice was a grating growl. Explain. Carter tapped his datapad. The screen split into 1,000 data streams, human fleet movements from 100 battles. Each one a flicker of light in a sea of chaos. Then, slowly, the chaos resolved. Patterns emerged, predictive arcs, decision trees. Human subconscious processing, Carter said. We don't calculate in real time. We feel it, centuries of war, of evolution, of staring into the dark and guessing what is coming next. It left marks in our genes, in our instincts. He pointed at the screen. What you dismissed as random chance was statistical optimization you couldn't see. Vrix's mandibles trembled. This changes everything. Chancellor Orlan's voice dripped condescension. Even if true, this human intuition is unpredictable, uncontrollable. The Federation cannot rely on. The Defiance relied on it, Carter interrupted. Captain Blake followed my numbers. You saw the result. The room went still again. They had all seen. The Vorak Armada, superior in every measurable way, outmaneuvered by a ship they should have vaporized in seconds. Zelth stood, his armored plate scraped together as he approached the podium. The other aliens shrank back, but Carter held his ground. Teach us, the Vorak Admiral demanded. Carter finally smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Only if the Federation admits humans don't rely on luck. Orlan's translucent skin flushed violet with rage. You would hold galactic security hostage to your pride. No, Carter said. I'm holding it hostage to the truth. The silence this time was different, heavy, inevitable. Vrix was the first to bend. His bioluminescence dimmed in submission. The Zelthian science congregate acknowledges human predictive superiority. One by one, the others followed. The Vorak, the Zepyrians, even Orlan, though his admission came through gritted teeth. Carter nodded. He erased the Fey equation and began writing anew faster. Now his fingers flying across the board in a blur of symbols and numbers. The aliens leaned forward, their various eyes straining to follow. This, Carter said, is how we see the universe. And for the first time in galactic history, the aliens had nothing to say.